Do you think I'm crazy? Because that's what he told people. And the more he said it, the more I started to believe it. The kettle clicks off like a throat clearing in an empty room. I don't remember turning it on. The mug in front of me is his. Chipped rim, a faded mountain he never climbed. The chair across from mine is pulled out just enough to pretend someone rose from it recently. I keep catching the ghost of a hand on the backrest, the shape of a body that isn't there. I'm not sure if I left him or if I was quietly erased. It happened the way wallpapers peel. Slow, then all at once. A corner lifting, a thumb passing over it, and then a strip in your hand with the pattern still perfect, just not attached to anything. There are objects that still say us, even though they're lying. The plant we bought because the tag promised low maintenance. It's dying, which feels on the nose. The umbrella we shared, still dripping dust in the hallway. His hoodie folded on the radiator, smelling like laundry and decisions I can't remember making. I keep rehearsing the last real conversation, the way you do when you're trying to pin a butterfly to a board without tearing the wings. Did I say, I can't keep doing this? Did he say, you're overreacting? Somewhere between those two sentences, a glass slid off the counter of our life and shattered, and now I'm kneeling in it, trying to decide which pieces are mine. He told people I misunderstood things, that I remembered them wrong. I started narrating my days in my head like a court reporter. 9:14. He kissed my forehead, said, "You're sweet?" 9:15. I believed him. When you catalog love by the minute, it stops being love. It becomes evidence. I'm not angry. Not yet. Anger would mean I know what happened. What I feel is softer, shapeless. Like fog you can drink and still be thirsty. I've lost more than whatever he was willing to give me. I've misplaced my own certainty. I keep walking through rooms waiting for my reflection to start speaking first, to tell me which parts of the story are true. We met in a season that was already falling apart, summer pretending it was still spring, bright mornings, but air that bit back by dusk. I was raw then, coming off a breakup that had left my nerves exposed, like every sound was a reminder that love could be loud one day and gone the next. I'd promised myself, never again, never beg, never explain myself to be understood. Then he appeared, quiet, deliberate, the kind of man who never raised his voice because he didn't need to. He made ordinary moments feel stable, like nothing unpredictable could happen as long as he was there. He had a stillness that made people trust him. When I talked, he listened without interrupting. Head tilted, eyes steady. After months of chaos, that felt like safety. The first night we really spoke, he told me, "I love how much you care." It landed like a gift. I didn't realize it was also a measurement of how much I'd give and how little he'd need to. I started building little altars to that sentence. Remembered how he liked his tea, folded his shirts the way his mother did, stocked his favorite cereal before he noticed it was low. I texted good mornings before he woke, planned dinners before he asked, checked in before he had the chance to miss me. He thanked me, always, softly. "You're amazing. You think of everything. I'm lucky." And I believed him, because in the beginning, gratitude felt like love. His affection was quieter, a brush of the hand, a half smile, a murmured, "You're too good to me." He didn't do the grand things, but I convinced myself not everyone loves loudly. That maybe balance meant I poured more, and he held steady. Back then I called that peace. Now, looking back, I know what it really was. The first sound of silence wearing a heartbeat. It started small, the kind of shift you only notice once it's already happened. He was tired more often. Not the physical kind of tired, but the kind that lived in the eyes. His replies came slower, half sentences, fading dots on the screen. He used to call me after work. Now it was, "Rough day, talk tomorrow?" Tomorrow kept moving further away. So, I tried harder. More texts, longer messages, softer words. I'd reread them before sending, crossing out anything that might sound like a demand. When he didn't answer, I filled the silence for both of us. I told myself, love sometimes goes quiet. Then one night, while telling a story about our first weekend away, he interrupted me. "That's not what happened," he said. It wasn't defensive. It was calm. Certain. I blinked. What do you mean? You're the one who got lost. I was the one who found the shortcut. He smiled, polite, like he was humoring me. No, you were crying. I was the one who calmed you down. For a second, I almost apologized because his tone made my version sound like fiction. It was a small thing, a weekend memory. But his version stayed, like a new photograph replacing the old one on the fridge. The next time it happened, I laughed. Wow, maybe I'm going crazy. He just smiled and said, "You said it, not me." After that, I started talking to myself under my breath, quietly, softly, just to keep track. We had dinner here. He smiled. He said he loved it. I smiled back. I'd repeat it, like a recording, so I could replay it later in my head. Because sometimes the next morning he'd say, "You were upset last night. We argued." And I'd think, did we? It's strange how quickly certainty can erode. You think you'd notice when someone starts rearranging your memories, but it happens one sentence at a time. That was the first crack. Not the loss of love, but the loss of sequence, of knowing what came first, his story or mine. He wasn't lying to me. He was rewriting me. Every argument ended the same way, him quiet, me unraveling. He had a way of going still, of folding his arms and letting silence do the talking. No raised voice, no anger, just a calm that made mine look like chaos. I'd pace the floor, searching for words sharp enough to puncture that quiet. And when they didn't work, I'd soften them, then soften again, until the apology came out. "I'm sorry," I'd say, even when I wasn't sure for what. He'd sigh. "I'm just tired of being wrong all the time." That sentence hooked into me like a splinter. I'd spend hours after trying to pull it out. Was I making him feel attacked? Was I too reactive? Too sensitive? I'd write notes on my phone, things to say next time, ways to explain better, calmly, rationally. But next time, I'd still end up crying while he stared through me, unflinching, like I was performing a play he'd already seen too many times. I thought we were fighting about dishes, about weekends, about nothing, but we weren't fighting at all. He was documenting me. One night, at a dinner with friends, I caught the look, just a flicker, when I tried to tell a story about us. Their smiles were polite, but cautious, like they'd been briefed. When I laughed, one of them didn't meet my eyes. Later, one of them, Nora, walked me to my car. She was kind, the kind of kind that hurts. "He just worries about you," she said. "He said you've been overwhelmed lately." The word landed heavy. "Overwhelmed?" She backtracked fast. "Not in a bad way, just, things get stressful. You mean well." You mean well. The way people talk about someone who can't be helped. The way you talk about someone's illness in a whisper. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, watching him scroll his phone, my voice trapped behind my teeth. "Did you tell people I'm unstable?" I finally asked. He looked up, eyebrows drawn in mock confusion. "What? Of course not." Then a beat too long before the next line. "Did someone say that?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. His expression had already shifted, calm concern replacing denial. "Babe, you've been really stressed. Maybe you just misheard." And just like that, I doubted myself again. Because that's what he was best at. Not winning, not shouting, but scripting. He'd already written my ending and handed out the roles. I was the emotional one, the girl who tried too hard, who overreacted. He was the patient boyfriend doing his best, and everyone believed it. I felt it in the way friends started pausing before they spoke to me, in the polite texts that replaced invitations, in the way one even said, "He really loves you. You just have to trust him." Trust. The word felt dirty now, because he'd used it like camouflage, and I'd mistaken it for love. By the time I realized it, the verdict had already been passed. I was the unstable girlfriend. The case was closed. I tried to talk to him the right way. Calmly, kindly, rehearsed. I even practiced in the mirror, holding my face still so my mouth wouldn't tremble when I said it. "I just want to understand what's happening to us." He sat across from me at the table, nodding with that same patient expression that made me feel like a child explaining a dream. I talked for maybe 10 minutes, about distance, about how I missed him, about how I felt like I was always the one reaching. When I finally stopped, he tilted his head and said, almost gently, "You're stressed. You should talk to someone." It was like a trap door opened under my ribs. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't accused him of anything. I'd just asked to be seen. But in that moment, my pain became proof. My vulnerability became diagnosis. I tried to protest. "I'm not stressed. I'm hurt. There's a difference." He smiled that tiny, pitying smile. "That's what I mean." I don't know what I expected him to say, but it wasn't that. It wasn't being rewritten as unstable in real time. Later that night, when he left his phone face down on the counter, I picked it up, not to snoop, just to check the time, but there it was, a file folder named Conversations. I opened it. My own voice filled the room. Not my voice as I knew it, just the parts where I was crying, pleading, stumbling over words that didn't land. He'd been recording our arguments. He said it was to protect himself, that he never knew when I'd twist things. Listening to myself like that, edited, out of context, gasping between sobs, I almost didn't recognize me. I sounded unhinged, and for a moment, I believed him. I believed I was what he said I was, emotional, unstable, impossible to love without evidence. That was the breaking point. Not the recording itself, but the second I started to doubt my own voice. I stopped reaching out. No texts, no reminders, no carefully worded olive branches disguised as check-ins. At first, it felt like holding my breath. I expected the phone to buzz, for him to sense the pause like a missing pulse. But the days passed quietly, the kind of quiet that doesn't ask to be filled. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and the silence suited him. The house began to sound different. The hum of the fridge became louder. The floorboards creaked like they were learning to speak again. Even the air felt lighter, like something toxic had stopped circulating. I realized that for months I'd been mistaking noise for life. Every morning I used to send him a good luck message before work. Now I sat with the phone in my hand and waited for instinct to fade. By the third day, it did. By the fifth, I'd forgotten his schedule completely. The stillness stopped feeling like punishment. It started to feel like proof. That's when I understood. All my effort hadn't been love. It had been survival. I'd been loving at him, pouring myself into a wall and calling the echo connection. Every try harder had been a bruise I gave myself. He didn't break up with me. There was no final talk, no slammed door, no message that said goodbye. He just receded, like a tide that forgot to return. One evening, I walked through the apartment, turning off lights we'd left on for months. The couch, the photos, the half-dead plant, all still there, but weightless. I stood in the doorway and listened. There were no footsteps, no breathing, no second toothbrush tapping the sink. And that's when it hit me. I'd been trying to revive something that had only ever had one heartbeat, mine. He said he loved me, but only when I was trying hard enough to earn it. When I stopped trying, the love vanished. Or maybe it had never been there, just mirrored back from my own reflection. I don't need to prove anything anymore. I don't need to be right, or remembered, or believed. The silence that used to terrify me now feels like air. I can finally breathe. No anger, no grief left to wring out, just space. I used to call it love, all that effort, all that noise. Now I just call it peace.